Cincinnati put the most in-demand player of the North American hardcourt season on court 3. Not center court, court 3, the court you reach on a grounds ticket, the cheapest way into the building. Fans lined up outside a locked gate and waited roughly 90 minutes for it to open. And when it opened, the tournament director watched them run. By the time she was moved onto center court a few days later, the average ticket for that session was reportedly $160 higher than it had been 2 nights earlier, and the session sold out. Then the schedule sent her out to finish a match at 1 o'clock in the morning, and the tournament lost her in the 3rd round. That is not an exaggeration. That is the tournament director's own account given on a Tennis Channel panel alongside a ticket figure quoted publicly by a former top 20 American professional. But the 90-minute line outside that gate is not the strangest thing that happened in Mason, Ohio this week. The strangest thing is what the draw sheet already looked like before Alex Eala ever walked onto court 3, and what the number attached to her name is about to mean 3 weeks from now in New York. Here's where it starts. It is Saturday, August 15th. Alex Eala is the 17th seed at a WTA 1000 level event, the highest seeding she has ever held at this level. She is ranked 20th in the world, a career high, and she arrives in Ohio having won 8 of her previous 9 matches on this continent. She has a first-round bye. Her opening match is scheduled on court 3. Court 3 is not a ticketed stadium. It is a grounds pass court, which means anybody holding the cheapest admission in the building can walk up and stand there, and it means the tournament is not selling that match as an event. According to the tournament director, the fans work this out immediately. They arrive before the grounds are open. They stand outside a locked gate in August heat in southern Ohio, and they wait about an hour and a half for nothing more than the right to walk in. And when the gate finally opens, the tournament describes what follows as a stream of people moving in one direction toward one court. Inside, the crowd is waving Philippine flags and holding handmade posters in Mason, Ohio for a second-round match against the world number 77. Eala takes the first set 6-1 in 34 minutes. She wins 9 consecutive games at one stage. Then, the weather rolls in, play is suspended, and Elena Gabriela Rus retires from the match trailing 6-1, 3-0. So the loudest ticket on the grounds that day is a match that never actually finishes, on a court with no assigned seats, in front of people who queued 90 minutes to stand up and watch it. That's not a scheduling quirk. That's a tournament being surprised by its own product. And the court assignment is not the worst part. Now, here's where the pattern becomes impossible to ignore, because none of this is being alleged by fans or by anonymous accounts online. It is being said out loud, on camera, by the people who run these events. The Cincinnati tournament director described the court 3 scene himself on a Tennis Channel panel. The wait outside the gates, the rush when they opened, and record-breaking days across that weekend. That's not a supporter making a claim. That's the man responsible for the building's revenue. Then there is Toronto, 1 week earlier. The Canadian Open tournament director, a man who has run that event for 2 decades, said they had never seen anything like it in Toronto before, that the momentum had been building for a year, and that every match she played there sold out. He described a change in the physical look of the stadium, that in past years they would see tens of flags from various nations, and this year they saw hundreds and thousands of them. He said the fans stayed until the end of the session for the whole tournament. And the third voice is the money. Sam Querrey, speaking on the Nothing Major podcast, said he had heard that the average center court ticket for the night Eala played Amanda Anisimova was $160 higher per ticket than it had been 2 nights earlier, and that the session sold out. That figure is reported, not audited. He framed it as something he heard the night before, but it is the only ticket number anyone has attached to this tournament in public, and nobody at the event has disputed it. And the timing matters. Every one of those statements was made before she lost, and then the schedule caught up with her. Monday night, center court, 3rd round, against the 9th seed and world number 10, Amanda Anisimova. Eala starts the way the crowd came to see. She takes the first set 6-4 in a set that lasts an hour and 5 minutes and includes a single game that runs 20 minutes on its own. Anisimova breaks once in the second set and levels the match. In the third, Eala breaks immediately and leads 2-0 Then she loses the next next 6 games in a row. Final score 4-6, 6-4, 6-2, 2 hours and 28 minutes, finishing shortly before 1 o'clock in the morning. And in the same minute that the biggest draw of the week is out of the tournament, the cameras are on the woman who beat her, standing in the middle of a sold-out stadium that had spent 3 hours cheering for somebody else. Anisimova thanks that crowd. She says there was quite a bit of support for her that night, that she really appreciated it because she knows how loved Alex is, and for good reason. Then she jokes that she needed the pick-me-up because it was past her bedtime. Whether that line was a joke about the hour or a joke about whose building she was standing in is impossible to know. But the internet didn't care. By the next morning, both readings had thousands of people arguing about them, and the clip was being cut 2 different ways depending on which side of the argument you were posting from. And here's the detail that matters, because it comes back later. The player her is the only person in this entire story who described that crowd accurately. But here's the problem. Anisimova didn't need the result to understand what she was walking into. She said it in advance. After her second round win, before the two of them had ever played a match against each other, she said Eala had been having an incredible season, that she was a very great player with a lot of fans, and that she knew it was probably going to be a very packed stadium. She said she was looking forward to it. And this did not happen in some quiet corner of the media day where a quote could get lost. It happened in an on-court interview, broadcast live, and it was repeated on Tennis Channel afterwards. So the visiting player, the American, the one who would have been the natural home favorite in Ohio, publicly forecast that the stadium would be packed and loud for her opponent. And the tournament that had first put that opponent on a grounds pass court still scheduled the two of them into a session that ended at 1 in the morning. That's not a broadcaster with an opinion. That's the player who took the hit, calling the atmosphere correctly before anyone had hit a ball. Read that timeline again. Court 3 on Saturday, sold out center court on Monday, and a finish so late that the people who queued 90 minutes at that gate were watching the end of it after midnight. And it wasn't only her session. The top seed's opening match at the same tournament ended at 2:15 in the morning. One late finish is a scheduling accident. A pattern of them across the same week is the schedule itself. Now, here's where the story stops being about Alex Eala at all, because the premise everyone is arguing about, that this tournament emptied out when she lost, requires the tournament to have been full because of her in the first place, and it requires everybody else to still be there. Neither of those things survives contact with the draw sheet. World number 1 Jannik Sinner withdrew from Cincinnati with a knee injury, having also skipped Toronto. World number 2 Carlos Alcaraz withdrew with a wrist problem. Those two men won the last 2 titles at this venue. On the women's side, last year's runner-up Jasmine Paolini withdrew injured, and so did the former US Open champion Emma Raducanu. Then, on the 15th of August, Novak Djokovic, 3-time champion in Cincinnati, seeded 3rd, playing his first match since Wimbledon, lost in the second round to Thiago Agustin Tirante, 2-6, 6-4, 6-4. It took 2 hours and 45 minutes. He struggled visibly in the heat and humidity, took a medical timeout, and at one point appeared to be sick on court. Multiple outlets reported it may have been his last appearance at this tournament. That is 4 withdrawn stars and a 24-time major champion gone. All of it before Eala's third-round match had even been played. So the hole in this tournament was already there. She wasn't the collapse. She was the thing covering it. And that changes the accusation completely, because if you are looking for the moment Cincinnati lost its star power, it did not happen at 1 in the morning on Tuesday. It happened in a series of medical statements issued days earlier, and in a second-round upset in the heat on Saturday afternoon. One isolated absence can reasonably be called bad luck. 5 of them in the same fortnight at the biggest hardcourt event before a Grand Slam is a structural problem the sport has not solved. And it didn't even stop there, because the pattern around Eala specifically has been building all season, event by event, on the record. Go back to Wimbledon, where she reached the 4th round by beating the defending champion Iga Swiatek, Fast forward to Washington, where she beat Zheng Qinwen and Naomi Osaka on the way to the final, then beat Jessica Pegula 4-6, 6-4, 6-0 to win the title. The first player from the Philippines ever to win a WTA Tour singles title. Then Toronto, where she reached the 4th round, and where, in the words of the man who has run that event for 20 years, every single match she played sold out, and the flags went from tens to hundreds and thousands. Then Cincinnati, where the tournament director called the weekend record-breaking. And now, the US Open, which has already handed her a wild card into the mixed doubles alongside Felix Auger-Aliassime and scheduled her for an exhibition match in the opening week. 4 consecutive events, 4 separate sets of organizers reacting to the same thing after the fact. Nobody said a word about it in advance. None of this requires assuming anyone acted in bad faith or that any tournament deliberately undersold her. Scheduling at a 1,000-level event is built weeks out off seedings and rankings and broadcast windows. And on the seedings, she was the 17th seed at a tournament with the world's best players in it. That is the most obvious explanation, and it is probably the right one, but it is also exactly the point. The system that decides which court a player gets, and which session, and which television window does not measure the thing that emptied a queue into Court 3. It measures ranking, and by the ranking, she was the 17th seed. Yes, she took the opening set off the world number 10 and went up a break in the deciding set, and she leaves Ohio having climbed to a new career high on the computer. But that doesn't erase the result. She lost the last 6 games of the match and went out in the 3rd round. The irony is what sits underneath all of it. The single most valuable night of tennis this tournament sold in its 2nd week, by the only public number anyone has quoted, was built around a player who is not American, was not seeded inside the top 16, and whose first match the event itself placed on a court that requires no ticket at all. $160 a seat, sold out for a 3rd round match. And the reward for producing that night was a start time that finished it at 1 in the morning. So if nobody's actually accusing Cincinnati of anything, and the tournament just posted record days, why does that 90-minute line outside the gate still feel like the most important thing that happened all week? Because of where this goes next. The US Open begins in 3 weeks in a city with a Filipino population estimated at around 94,000 people, the highest concentration of them in Queens, which is the borough the tournament is played in. Eala leaves Cincinnati with her ranking points total up to 2,281, and her ranking improved again. She has a mixed doubles wildcard, an exhibition, and a main draw to come. Every stakeholder in that building has now watched what happened in Toronto and what happened in Ohio, and every one of them has the same information the Cincinnati tournament director had when he put her on Court 3. And here is the split that makes this genuinely arguable rather than a one-sided complaint. The most telling defense of Cincinnati does not come from Cincinnati. It comes from the tournament director himself, who described that same weekend as record-breaking, and from the attendance figures. This event drew a record 285,000 fans last year and has not reported anything resembling a crisis. By that measure, nothing collapsed at all, and the people insisting otherwise are describing a tournament that only exists in a thumbnail. Both of those things are true at the same time. The event is bigger than any one player, and the only sold-out session anybody put a number on this week belonged to a player it opened on its cheapest court. Nobody has reconciled those two facts because nobody has been asked to. There has been no statement, no explanation of the scheduling, no ruling, no apology, and none is coming. The tournament moves on to its final weekend, and the tour moves on to New York. But the next time an organizer has to decide which court Alex Eala plays on and which session she plays in, somebody in that room is going to remember a locked gate in Mason, Ohio, and the 90 minutes people stood outside it in the heat for a match with no seats.